morning. In the last section, we have discussed about nutrition. The food we intake during this process is used in the cell to provide energy for various life processes. Different organisms do this in different ways. Some use oxygen to break down the glucose into carbon dioxide, water and energy. Some use another pathway in which oxygen is not used. In all cases, the first step is the breakdown of glucose, a 6 carbon molecule into 3 carbon molecule pyruvate and energy. Further, pyruvate used for production of energy by different ways in different organisms. The first step in all organisms takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. We may place all these steps in a single chart. First, glucose. Glucose is a 6 carbon molecule. Okay. It is converted into what? Into pyruvate. The conversion takes place in cytoplasm. And the pyruvate is a 3 carbon molecule. During this process, energy is also produced. Now, this pyruvate is converted into energy and other products in different modes. We may think about the case of higher organism like human being, that is in the cell during cellular respiration. First, in the mitochondria, the process takes place. In the case of normal cell, mitochondria. For conversion of pyruvate, for releasing energy, oxygen is needed. So that in the presence of oxygen, this pyruvate is converted into what? 3 carbon dioxide molecule, then water and energy. Okay. Some organism does not use carbon dioxide. In that type of organism like yeast, the process is said to be fermentation or anaerobic respiration because oxygen is not used. So, we may consider the case of yeast. In yeast, absence of oxygen. What takes place during the conversion of pyruvate, the ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy is produced. Ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. This is known as the alcoholic fermentation. A similar process takes place in the muscle cell of our body, our muscle cells. Here also, in the absence of oxygen or lack of oxygen, when oxygen is absent, lack of oxygen, what happened? The conversion takes place for the production of energy. The byproducts are lactic acid and energy is produced. Lactic acid and energy is produced. During the process which takes place in yeast, carbon dioxide is produced, and that process is known as anaerobic respiration because it takes place in the absence of oxygen, and it is also known as fermentation. Here in muscle cell also the process is known as fermentation. Here it is known as lactic acid fermentation, and in the case of yeast it is known as the alcoholic fermentation. So this is the step which takes place in different organisms. First step is same in all the organism, and it takes place in the cytoplasm. The energy released during cellular respiration is immediately used to synthesize a molecule called ATP. It is used to fuel all the activity in the cell. It means ATP. ATP is used to fuel all the activity in the cell. In endothermic reaction, this ATP is used to drive the reactions. ATP can be used in the cells for the contraction of muscle, then protein synthesis, conduction of nerve impulses, and many more functions. In short, ATP can be named as energy currency of the cell, as it can be used up whenever it is needed. Now, we may do some activities to prove that carbon dioxide evolved during respiration and during fermentation also. For the first activity, take 2 test tubes and pour some freshly prepared lime water in it. Blow expelled air into the first test tube, and you can see that the bubbles when move into the lime water, it is converted into milky white. You might have studied that carbon dioxide can turn lime water into milky. So here the expelled air contains carbon dioxide, so that it is converted into milky. Now the atmospheric air also have carbon dioxide, isn't it? So how can we differentiate that the quantity of carbon dioxide present in expelled air is more than in the case of atmospheric air? For that, the second test tube is needed. The second test tube with this freshly prepared lime water is to be taken. Then take a pitchkari, that means a water gun, and fresh air, the atmospheric air, may be pumped into this or passed into this lime water, freshly prepared lime water, in the second test tube continuously. After a long time, you can see that it slowly turn into milky white. So atmospheric air also contains carbon dioxide, but the conversion of lime water into milky white, while we blow air or expelled air into the lime water, was very fast. That means expelled air contains more carbon dioxide in it. second experiment is to prove that during fermentation carbon dioxide evolved. For that, take a test tube and pour some fruit juice or sugar solution into it. Then add some yeast into the solution. Mix it well and keep it. Then the test tube is closed with one holed cork. Then fix a bent glass tube into the hole and dip the free end of the glass tube into another test tube containing freshly prepared lime water. Keep it as such. After some time, you can see some bubbles move into the freshly prepared lime water, which is dipped with the end of glass tube. And after some time, as the bubble increases, you could see that the lime water turns milky. Here the fermentation, yeast activate the fermentation, so that what happened, the carbon dioxide evolves and that carbon dioxide convert the lime water into milky, so that we could prove that the fermentation result the production of carbon dioxide. Since the aerobic respiration depends on oxygen, aerobic organisms need to ensure the sufficient intake of oxygen. We have seen that plants exchange gases through the stomata. During daytime, the intercellular space filled with air, and plants ensure that all the cells are in contact with the air. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged by diffusion in this region. At night, when there is no photosynthesis occurring, carbon dioxide elimination is the major activity takes place here. Again, during daytime, carbon dioxide evolved during respiration is used for photosynthesis, and instead of carbon dioxide, oxygen is released. So, while photosynthesis occur, the carbon dioxide is used for fixing the carbon, and during night, as the photosynthesis does not occur, carbon dioxide is released. The process takes place through the stomata. Animals have evolved different organs for uptake of oxygen from the environment. and get rid of carbon dioxide produced. During metabolic activities, their body is found to produce carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is expelled during this respiratory process. Observe a fish in an aquarium. You can see that the fish open and close their mouth. It moves the operculum also. That is the simultaneous movement of the mouth and operculum you can observe. Here they allow water to flow through the gills so that they could get the oxygen dissolved in the water. Thus fish use the gills for respiration. When we compare the rate of respiration in the case of fish and human being, it may be found varied. You know that aquatic organisms use the dissolved oxygen from the water. As the dissolved oxygen is lesser in that than when we compare with the atmospheric air, the rate of respiration is found to be more in aquatic organism compared to the terrestrial organism. As the percentage or partial pressure of oxygen in the atmosphere is greater, the land dwelling organism or terrestrial organism show lesser rate of respiration. Rate of respiration is 100 per minute in the case of fishes, and in the case of human being it is nearly 12 to 16. So the amount of dissolved oxygen is fairly low compared to that of air, and the rate of breathing in aquatic organism is much faster than that of the terrestrial organism. The terrestrial organism use atmospheric oxygen for respiration. Terrestrial organism use different organs for respiratory purpose. Insects use trachea for respiration. Insects use trachea for respiration. They use trachea for respiration. And in the case of spider, scorpion, they use book lungs. Okay, book lungs. Then in the case of other organism like earthworm use moist skin, and the vertebrates like amphibia. Then amphibian, among amphibian, the aquatic amphibian use gills, and terrestrial amphibian then reptiles, birds and mammals use what? Lungs for respiration. They use lungs for respiration. All the organisms have a structure that increases the surface area which is in contact with the oxygen rich atmospheric air. The surface which is used for exchange of gas kept very fine and delicate, and for protective purpose these structures are kept inside the body of organism. There will be some passages to carry the oxygenated air into the area in the case of organism which the structures are kept inside the body. In human, the air is taken into the lungs through the external nostrils. Through the external nostrils it passes toward the inner region, and then it is passed toward the trachea and carried toward the lungs. The air which is taken in through this external nostril is filtered with the air present in that region. The regions or the lining of the passages, nostrils are found to be with the air. It filter the air. Likewise, the mucus lining also there, which also help to settle down the dust particles. So, a clear air which is found to be passed toward the lung region. So, from the trachea, the air enters into the lungs. The cartilaginous rings are there present in the trachea. It ensure the opening condition of the trachea and the air passages, and it is the cartilaginous parts ensure the air passages does not collapse. So, what is the use of the cartilaginous structure or rings present in the air passages, that is trachea and the primary regions of bronchi, bronchiole? It is for protecting that region not to collapse. Okay, not to collapse. Within the lungs, the trachea divides into two, and that is called bronchus. It further divides into secondary and tertiary bronchus. Then the terminal bronchioles are formed, which ends with the alveoli. Alveoli is a balloon-like structure which is membranous and very thin also. The walls of the alveoli contain extensive network of capillaries. That means it is highly vascularized. This vascularized condition help for the exchange of gas. Here the oxygenated air is found to be filled inside the alveoli, and the capillary is in direct contact with the alveolar membrane, so that from the alveoli through the thin membranous region, the oxygen which is present in the alveolar air may move into the blood in the capillary. Likewise, the capillary is supposed to carry the carbon dioxide rich air while it passed from the internal region, from the internal organs or tissues. So, that carbon dioxide is found to pass or exchanged toward the lung. Now, from the lung, the carbon dioxide rich air is expelled out. The blood which receive the oxygenated air is carried toward the tissue and organ where it is to be supplied. Now, we may study the structure of respiratory system.